I love her, and her superpower is her heart. It's nothing supernatural. It's something that all of us have. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy Snow White. Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry. That was acting. That's what that was. I don't really care what happens with this movie. I really hope her career is pretty much over. I'd be thrilled to see that. I can't imagine. I mean, Christian, you tell.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who does Megyn Kelly have it out for Disney's retelling of the age-old classic Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is out this 2025. Might have been set in olden times, but that's about as close to the original as it is. Rachel Zegler starred as the controversial lead, assisted by Gal Gadot as the evil stepmother and a handful of others in the ensemble cast, not the Seven Dwarfs, though they're all CGI.
It's totally uplifting and the right way to be woke, Link, when you actually cancel the roles for the marginalized population, because just putting them on screen is somehow racist.
We don't want to go off on a tangent here, so we'll stick to the basic conversation surrounding Disney's live-action remake. It sucks, at least that's what Megyn Kelly and several other critics seem to think, and it didn't just tank because of the lack of representation or too much representation, or frankly not just because of the retold storyline for a classic. No, Megyn Kelly believes you can narrow it down to the lead.
Behind the scenes, you guys know as well as I do that those executives like Spielberg are looking at that saying, Rachel Zegler can F right off.
Yep, Snow White was a failure because of Snow White herself. Megyn Kelly invited Link, Lauren and Christian Toto on her podcast to talk it out. Before we actually talk about what was said during the March 2025 episode of the Megyn Kelly Show, you should know that the political commentator mentioned Zegler on her podcast before too, and it wasn't pretty. So here's what she said. Hello Disney, you're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense. This woman would be Rachel Zegler, and for those of you who don't know, Disney had previously sacked The Mandalorian star Carano in 2021 for comparing the treatment of American conservatives to Jews in Nazi Germany. With that in mind, you really have to wonder what was it that the lead of 2025 Snow White said that could have been worse than that. In November 2024, after the United States re-elected Donald Trump as its 47th president, several people were angry, and one of them was Rachel Zegler. She took her frustration to social media, where after a long rant she concluded with, I wish Donald Trump and his supporters never know peace. Sheesh, Megyn wasn't the only one who wasn't too thrilled with Zegler's comments back then, and she had a lot to say about it. Still, she went into the March 2025 podcast episode with a clean slate. This would just be about Zegler's role as Snow White, history repeating itself. Megyn Kelly was not amused, neither were her guests Link, Lauren and Christian Toto. That's Toto from the podcast Hollywood and Toto. Safe to say that they weren't too impressed with Zegler's performance either. So Toto's actually seen the film. The shocker here is that he actually didn't mind it. He believed that while Disney fumbled and Snow White was nowhere near being the hit they'd hoped, it also wasn't the flop that everyone had anticipated either.
The reason why Rachel Zegler sticks around is she's got a beautiful voice and she has some talent. So I think that certainly helps her because she's a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her, but
yes, the CGI dwarfs were weird, and yes, the storyline was unnecessarily woke, but that just contributed to making the overall film a bit awkward at worst. The only real problem was Rachel Zegler, and not because of her acting. All three of them agreed that the whole problem with the movie was Zegler's attitude leading up to the film's release. There weren't just a few problems, there were several, and most of them had something to do with Zegler in some way, shape or form.
Talented, she's attractive, she's got skill, but there are a lot of actresses in Hollywood who bring all that to the table and are not going to absolutely sabotage you.
Megyn actually slammed Zegler for ruining Snow White by trying to push the work agenda for a German classic. You might have remembered the infamous clip of Zegler calling out the original for being weird because it glorifies a stalker. Yeah, that stalker would be the prince.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalked.
Suffice it to say, Zegler's seemingly overwhelming hate for the movie she was set to lead and didn't help her in actually promoting it. Yes, she was at every promotional event, and yes, she would also have great things to say about her time working on the film, but no, she didn't have anything great to say about Snow White herself.
Yeah, no, Rachel Zegler, she needs to be more grateful for the role she had. If I were cast in a Disney movie, I would be saying, I love Disney, I love Snow White. I wouldn't be saying anything negative.
And that's something that Megyn Kelly just couldn't wrap her head around. To be fair, it's hard to come to terms with the fact that an actor took on a leading role knowing they didn't resonate with the character in the slightest. In hindsight, Rachel Zegler was never the right fit. Would you believe it if we said it took Disney 9 years to create 2025 Snow White? You better believe it, actually, because news of a live-action remake first broke sometime in 2016 when Mark Webb was announced as the director. of the film. Webb got to work immediately. A few days into the job, he's already talking to Aaron Pressida Wilson and Greta Gerwig about the modern take on the screenplay. He's also looking for a lead actress and is open to recommendations. Cue Steven Spielberg. Yes, the greatest director of all time, Steven Spielberg. He makes a recommendation to Webb, and you best believe Webb wasn't about to say no to Spielberg himself. The creator of West Side Story recommended Maria aka Rachel Zegler for the role. Webb said, "Let's get to it. Every young person dreams about a phone call like that. I've been lucky to have a few of those in my life, but this one is certainly extra special. As a huge Disney fan, great." The lead actress sorted, and Gal Gadot was cast as the evil queen just a few days later. But here's where we talk about the first controversy surrounding the film. Fun fact for Disney fanatics here: Snow White is actually the first and the youngest Disney princess yet, based on the German fairy tale and released in 1937. Snow White was Disney's debut princess who looked notably different than Zegler. This wouldn't have been the first time that Disney played fast and loose with the originals. Halle Bailey's casting as Ariel in the live-action remake of The Little Mermaid was also met with a lot of backlash. On one hand, people criticized the casting. They believed that Disney had every opportunity and the budget to create a new fairy tale, instead of reimagining a classic to fit a woke narrative. On the other hand, it's the modern day and age. Do we really care about what ethnicity plays a character, especially when it has nothing to do with the storyline itself? The debate on ethnicity could go on and on. Still, when the movie was actually in production, the debate shifted to something else. Do we really think Rachel Zegler actually wants to play this role? Reverting back to what we already talked about, it just seemed like the lead actress didn't have anything nice to say about the character she was playing, and you'd think that that would be the first thing anyone would have to consider. Could Steven Spielberg have been, dare we say, wrong? With Disney desperate for a hit, Rachel Zegler's gone back on her own words, and now 3 years into production and several years after the film was set in motion, Snow White's finally here. It's been a long journey, with one controversy being greater than the next, and then so on, until you have Rachel Zegler thinking, oh, that 1937 movie, that's just, oh, it's tacky. It's weird, it's H way to change all that. I mean, what a difference. But it's here, and Disney executives have one last thing for Zegler to do: promote the film. In an interview on Good Morning America, Zegler had this to say about the film: "It's all about bridging a classic to a modern age, to bring it to these beautiful young people. Her superpower remains her heart. You know, that's always been the core of this story. That's always been the core of the Disney company. Now, this was notably different than the whole rhetoric a few years ago when she called the film weird and one of the main characters a stalker." Right, Megyn Kelly believes that this is Zegler trying to save face with Disney now that her career is in jeopardy. On her podcast, Kelly actually goes deeper into the whole Zegler controversy. She even talked more about how the two leading ladies reportedly hated one another. That's right, add this to the growing pile of Snow White controversies: Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot reportedly cannot stand one another. Zegler also faced blowback after posting "Free Palestine." The Doe is from Israel and served in the Israeli army. Now, this is rumored to be because of their different political opinions, or just the fact that they didn't get along too well on set. We might never know. What we do know is that there's a good chance that Zegler won't be cast in another Disney movie for a long time, not just because of her comments on Snow White, but also reportedly because she has had a lot of negative things to say about the people she worked with in Hollywood in general. An actor who doesn't like the industry. Yeah, Megyn Kelly doesn't think that's the right attitude for the job.